watching BBC News with me, Mamia Titira. Today is very special. We have our guests from two amazing business analysts from MM17 Dragon Business School. They will join us soon in session Daily Report. And this is our top world story.
The Chinese PC maker LENOVO saying it's buying Google Motorola's mobile business for $2.9 billion. The deal, the biggest tech acquisition ever by a Chinese firm, gives LENOVO a foothold in the US smartphone market, dominated by Apple and Samsung.
Google bought Motorola in 2012 for $12.5 billion. With smartphone sales down, the U.S. IT giant is now selling the handset division for about one-fourth that price. LENOVO executives want to boost the company's presence in the global smartphone market. It's now the fourth largest, following Samsung and Apple. LENOVO has been growing fast as the world's largest supplier of personal computers. The Chinese firm took over IBM's personal computer unit in 2005.
LENOVO officially acquired Motorola Mobility from Google in a deal worth $2.91 billion. Following the acquisition, Motorola will exist as wholly owned subsidiary of LENOVO, but Google still retains the majority of Motorola patent portfolio along with the advanced technology and project research division. LENOVO now owns the Motorola brand as well as the Moto Android trademarks. LENOVO indicated that they plan to aggressively pursue selling Motorola devices in China, emerging markets, and even stateside. The last bit is perhaps the most interesting aspect of the buyout. Now that LENOVO owns Motorola, the company has the branding power, experience, and carrier relationships to bring the devices stateside. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, please give them a host to Phone and Job. First of all, thank you so much for joining me today. The discussed topic today is related to our top world story in the beginning. To what extent do you think acquiring Motorola Mobility smartphone business has or has not helped LENOVO to achieve competitive advantage in the global smartphone market? Perhaps I should start talking about the LENOVO first. LENOVO is Chinese computer technology company that is on the 500 Fortune list, no doubt at all. LENOVO was the world leading PC producer in 2013 with around 7 million sold units. Until 2005, there was local producer of low-cost and low-quality products. Huge Chinese market was used to achieve economy of scale with low profit margins. Their strategy was to go abroad and take strategy resource because at that time, their internal development was expensive and time-consuming. Few months later, LENOVO acquired IBM PC subsidiary, intending to leapfrog competitive gap. It's what a smart move, I would say, and I think other big companies are also using this acquiring approach and become successful. So you guys know about this company already, so you guys have probably heard about the term of acquiring IBM PC subsidiary, right?
Yes. I think that move was a big impact to the company. With they take the acquisition to IBM for $125 billion and for the target to over the division of the personal computer. This acquisition, they provide the patents, products, and expert employees to the LENOVO. And I think this is a big starting shot to the company that make a radical transformation from the local Chinese company to become a truly global company. After the acquisition, it's made LENOVO become the 9th rank of the world, and they double the number of the employees suddenly at that time, and many success from this acquisition, I think.
We need to look back in the past. LENOVO successfully in PC and laptop business after acquiring the IBM Think series and other department in 2015. This acquisition provides LENOVO many things that is necessary for conducting operation abroad. At that time, CEO of LENOVO said in 5 years he wanted to the company to be very famous PC brand which may double the growth of the industry. He wants to have a very healthy profit margin and maybe some other business beyond PC worldwide. And in 2015, Lenovo claimed to have grown into the world's #1 PC maker, moving up from the 9th rank in the world. And if we analyze this acquisition from Cage Framework Analysis of Mark Thomas Research, for the cultural perspective would be in the first rank of the question from many people around the world because there was a huge gap between American and Chinese business. Hofstede contrasted to cultures on such aspects as high and low uncertainty, avoidance, collectivistic, and individualist. However, Lenovo get rid of this barrier by trusting the senior manager in the US to operate in their own terms, and most of them stay on with the company for ensuring the smooth transition and stability within the organization. For the aspect of administrative and political distance, Lenovo also managed to overcome the initial challenge to deal with the US government that worried about the Chinese company having access to the US technology. This was especially delicate given that IBM had many contracts with the government and there were many sensitive data. So Lenovo guarantees ensure that this problem will be overcome in the 1 year or 2 years, which further ensure successful integration. And for the geographical distance, because of the different time zone, it was extremely to engage in direct communication within the normal working hours. So the most communication of the two firms was in the form of email. But for the complicated issue, we will deal with the teleconference at that time. So for the last topic from Cage analysis, which is the economic distance, at that time, Chinese economy was growing rapidly through income per capita, but the Lenovo and IBM market was so different. However, Lenovo also overcome this challenge and be able to transform itself into the leading PC manufacturer within a decade. The question is, can they do it this time with the acquisition of the well-known brand in the US market as Motorola Mobility?
I think you guys probably want to know why it has to be Motorola, including me myself as well. I just want to know why it has to be Motorola. But before that, we should know the company first. I think there may be some reason behind after we listen to the background of this company.
Okay, let me talk about the history of the Motorola. The Motorola is a famous brand in the world and the history is quite interesting. It was found in 1928 in USA, Chicago. But if we focus on the mobile phone industry, it was began in 1984. Since the Motorola launched the first cellular phone at that time, it makes the Motorola become the world's largest manufacturer of mobile phone. But after the arrival of Nokia, the 2 years after, it slipped to the second rank in the position in 1998. But I think during the 2000s, the operation and the performing is quite not well. From the 2007, there was a big change again in the phone industry, the coming of the mobile phone, like iOS, Apple, and Samsung, and the coming of the Android OS. That's make Motorola suffer from the losses a lot, and they have to split the company into two divisions to maintain the profit, which is one side is the Motorola Solutions, which is focused on the telecommunication, and the other side is the Motorola Mobility, which do operate on the smartphone division.
Okay, so that's the story of the Motorola alone. But you may have heard the news that Google already bought Motorola in 2011. So we should hear this story a little bit before we jump into analysis part.
Okay. Google bought Motorola in 2011 for $12.5 billion to become consumer gadget makers from a search and software company. With the acquisition of Motorola Mobility, Google became both hardware and software company. And Google also planned to create a popular and innovative smartphone for people around the world. From this acquisition, Google intended to get the more than like 17,000 patents from Motorola Mobility. Let's see what the benefit of this deal were. First, Google and Motorola together will accelerate innovation and choice of mobile computing. Second, the patent will protect Android ecosystem. With this thought, Google think that this will be a great plan, but at the end, it didn't work, and decided to leave Motorola for Lenovo. From the interview from Yang in the Harvard Business Review in 2014, show that the acquisition of Motorola from Lenovo has been in the talk since 2012, right after the acquisition of Motorola by Google. Between him and Eric Schmidt, the Google executive chairman, Yang said to Eric that, "Do you really think you can handle the hardware business? And if someday you can't, just call him, and he will buy Motorola from Eric Schmidt." A year and a half later, Eric called Yang and they quickly reached an agreement.
And the story about another big deal from Google bought Motorola. So I think it's interesting to know about the situation after the acquisition, Lenovo acquisition Motorola. So when Motorola smartphone sales are added to Lenovo, the total number is about 60 million in 2013 and 6% market share, which makes Lenovo instantly the third largest smartphone maker when the Motorola sale had been completed. Well, the situation of Motorola after acquisition was not as good as expected as planned. It cannot help Lenovo making profit within the 5 year. Based on the good sales of Motorola phone in last 2 quarters of 2014, it would take more than years to become profitable. It was very difficult for Lenovo to revive Motorola mobility in the near future to all become a global or home market leader in smartphone segment. In global market, it was lagging behind Huawei and Xiaomi. Number of units shipped by Lenovo are much less than Huawei. If one compare Lenovo share with Samsung, the difference is more than 4 times. And it may not be possible for Lenovo to compete with Samsung, Apple, and Huawei. In all possibility, it may a less decline in sales of Motorola, plus Lenovo smartphone be at 5th or lower place. From the business point of view, do you think this will be repeat success like IBM in the near future? Since acquisition up until 2017, the market share keep decreasing, but it's still present in the market share. Do you think it's a good choice? Perhaps we should start with let's hear about the trigger point or the incentive for Lenovo for making this deal.
Okay, I think for that time, the Lenovo doesn't have a choice much, but I think the major point that makes Lenovo the decision to play in the mobile phone industry is the maturity in the PC market. Let me show you on the product lifecycle chart. You see that since 2000s, the decision that Lenovo made the acquisition on IBM personal computer division was a huge success and made the Lenovo become the world's largest PC makers in the world for like 2 decades. But regarding the product lifecycle on the PC markets, it showed that this industry trend began in the 1980s and then has to be the skyrocket growth during the 1990s and the millennial. This golden generation made Lenovo have a rapid growth, but during the 2010 time flies, PC market has led to maturity state and began to decrease year by year. Although the whole market of PC is declining during that time, but Lenovo was I think they are a great player. The Lenovo are able to grow and remain profit due to the strength and on the low cost but quality products. But there's still a big question on how to be able to survive and keep expanding in long-term growth in the declining old PC market. So I think that is the reason why they are interested in the related field from the PC market, which is the mobile phone market. I think it began in the 2007. The new era of smartphone has just begun, leading with the iOS by Apple and Android OS by Google came as a major player in the market to compete with Symbian OS from Nokia at that time. And the market was rapidly increased according to the coming of the internet and telecommunication like 3G, 4G, and 5G in order that made smartphone become inevitable product for everyone. And it obviously seemed that attractive than the PC market. At the early interface, Lenovo saw the market and they began to develop by themselves. So they launched the Lenovo phone's original product lines since 2010 by adopting Android OS and spend their own manufacturing base to produce. And this is how the Lenovo smartphones at that time looked like. But because of the smartphone is a new industry for Lenovo, there is a lack on the expertise and technology on smartphone technology. They firstly get into the market with the low pricing strategy, focus on the middle to low segment in domestic market first, and slightly get into the global market. During the early years after they have entered into the market, it was I can count that it quite successful in an early period. According to the sales data, Lenovo phones could take 12% share of the domestic market in 2012. But if you look into the bigger picture as a global market, Lenovo hasn't been that successful like Mamil said in the smartphone industry since they have been developing for years in terms of the worldwide recognition. And this is the charts. Moreover, the success of smartphone division is far from previous success of Lenovo in PC market, like when they acquired IBM, including the newcomer of the domestic brands such as Huawei, Xiaomi, and many players has come into this market. So that is a major threat for Lenovo to be concerned. Okay, in order to see the more clear picture for the Lenovo, how is it going for now, let's adopting SWOT analysis to look for their strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Currently at that time, their strength is the regulation from globally well known as the world leader in PCs market. And the second is the capability. According to they have a manufacturing base in China, so they have a competitive advantage on the low cost and easy to control production process by themselves. And the third is the domestic market experts, because Lenovo has been operating in this market since 1980s, so they know the market well in the relating domestic market. And the third is the core competency for the merging and acquisition, because they have acquired the IBM before, so they know how to acquire it more and more, I think. And actually the high capital. Yes, and let's look on the weakness. I think they have the low profit gains due to the target segment they focus on, the low cost market actually. And then is the differentiation, because in the smartphone market it's like a red ocean. So they have many competitors that adopting the Android OS. So it is hard to differentiate from the other players. Then we look into the opportunities, the coming of the new telecommunication and technologies, and the high growth in the new market. And the next one is the collaboration with telecom sectors. First thing is the domestic and international competitors and the substitutes product. The other is the tech gap between the leader and the follower, like technology application from Apple is hard to catch up.
For such a very good analysis from the both of you. So perhaps we should move to the next question. Why is had to be using acquisition as entry mode to the new industry? So this one I got the answer for you. Actually, it's similar to other big companies that acquire other companies for a host of reasons, including the first one is synergies. By combining business activities, overall performance efficiency tends to increase and across the board costs and tend to drop due to the fact that each company leverage off and of the other company's strength. The next one is growth. It can give an opportunity to grow market share without doing significant heavy lifting. Instead, acquire simply buy a competitor business for a certain price in what is usually referred to as a horizontal merger. And the last one is eliminate competition, and it may lead to eliminate future competition and gain a larger market share. So I think the next possible question and very interesting question is why it had to be Motorola and any other alternatives during that time?
Yes. First, we need to look at what's the value to the Lenovo, IP or brand. The answer is both. The brand is very important in North America and Latin America, in China too. Even though they also need this kind of IP to be a global player, particularly in mature markets. Plus, Motorola has strong relationship with carriers and retail network, including Google. And from those answers, Lenovo expect every time to repeat of the success acquisition, the ThinkPad business from IBM, which made Lenovo the world leader in personal computers in 2012. Lenovo mission is being leader in the manufacturing of smartphone like personal computer segment. It had at brand Motorola in its basket. So Lenovo will operate the Motorola as a wholly owned subsidiary with its headquarters in Chicago, USA. One of the reporters report that Google had kept most of the Motorola patents and will provide Lenovo a license for usage of patents and other intellectual property as a part of the deal. To be more precise, Lenovo will get first, brand and trademark. Second, future product roadmap. Third, license to the intellectual property. And fourth is over 2,000 patent assets out of 17.5 thousand patents. Yeah, this was the biggest overseas acquisition by the Chinese company in technology sector. From this acquisition, Google will maintain ownership of the majority of the Motorola mobility patent portfolio, while Motorola will receive a license to this rich portfolio of patent and intellectual property. Motorola will retain over 2,000 patent assets. So to answer why Motorola was acquired by Lenovo, the number one is Lenovo was not having a significant presence in the smartphone segment in US, but Motorola has. The second is patent. The third, Motorola is still well known in large market of Western Europe, India, and Latin America. Lenovo believes that Motorola mobility will provide a shortcut to make entry in mature, large, and growing markets of the smartphone business, which in turn may help it in becoming global leader in mobile phone segment. Fourth, Lenovo believes that the strong presence in home country along with presence in US, Europe, India, and Latin America will help him to create the brand assets and acquiring more loss-making companies across the globe or countries of its populations. 5. Strategic relation with carrier like Verizon and also Google. 6. The stagnation of PC business, although they are the number one, but the PC market is not growing as they expect at that time. 7. Full technology package. Yeah.
So to my understanding, there is another potential choice at that time, HTC. So what do you think is why they didn't choose HTC as a final option?
Okay. At that time, there is a possible acquisition of the Taiwanese smartphone maker, like you said, HTC by Lenovo. The deal was likely to be sealed at the same time as the Lenovo Motorola deal. But Lenovo needs to gain an entry into the US market where it doesn't have significant inroads in the smartphone arena. So Motorola, which is still a well-known name in US and other key markets of like Western Europe, Latin America, can help Lenovo in these geographies. The acquisition of HTC would have set Lenovo back by almost $1 billion when compared to the super discount of like Motorola 2.91 billion. Yeah. The acquisition of HTC would only given Lenovo an access to hardware and perhaps more exposure to the emerging markets. And from the perspective of VIO framework, American manufacturing is not just valuable and rare, but is also fairly difficult to imitate. Given the rate at which manufacturing resources capabilities have moved overseas to take advantage of lower labor costs, in the short term, the reputational benefit that comes with American manufacturing could prove to be of a great value in trying to enter to the American market. Not only do Americans prefer American-made products, but they also often possess negative bias against overseas manufacturing due to the factors such as limited quality regulation, exploitation of cheap local labor, etc. In addition, local manufacturing reduces turnaround time and allows consumers to receive their mass customized products very quickly. In trying to enter a new market, these benefits may outweigh the costs and help Lenovo establish a positive brand for itself, and we recommend Lenovo maintain Motorola's American manufacturing presence for the time being. Yes.
Alright, so thank you so much. So then comes to the next question. Is organic expansion path better for faster growth in high-tech electronic industries such as smartphone? So it is Lenovo's strategy to keep its place secure among top makers of smartphone or mobile phone through inorganic growth with acquisition of Motorola Mobility. It also sends signal that Lenovo plans to be a strong competitor to Apple, Samsung, and other Chinese makers. Lenovo expected that its one-third revenue will come from smartphone business after Motorola Mobility acquisition, but its strategies are not in line with this assumption. So to answer this question, it enhanced growth in high-tech electronic industry. In case of Motorola Mobility, Lenovo will gain benefit by having footprints of its brand Motorola and Lenovo in North America and other major markets. The second one is leveraging Motorola Mobility's strong relation with telecommunication carrier in the USA. And the third one is having hold of some intellectual property of Motorola. The fourth one is enhancing the customer base with their customer of acquired Motorola Mobility. The fifth one is having control of new project of Google. Six is the research and development team of Motorola. Seven is possible favor from Google due to attitude of Samsung toward Android. So this faced with the Lenovo inorganic strategy of expansion. In the recent part, Lenovo is looking for even acquiring local video company, and this is another example that inorganic growth is more on the future agenda of Lenovo in comparison to organic growth. And moving on to the next question, will it diversify or expand Lenovo markets for its existing products as well as products of acquired Motorola Mobility?
Yes, sure. I think the Lenovo business will be more geographically diversified. The Lenovo will have bigger basket of products on both PC and mobile phone, and Lenovo is now less dependent on the China market, but focus more on the global market. Yes, and the smartphone will be a new source of growth for Lenovo and compensate for saturation of PC segment. But going by data for the last 3-year performance, we have to look in the longer duration or look in the longer term, because now I think the Lenovo had to take a little bit longer time to take the investment into a profit. Yeah, but the challenge is in the China market. On the contrary, important part for Lenovo is to re-enter into the China market, because they have lost their share to lower than 1% after the acquisition. According to the graph, the domestic market is currently dominated by the major domestic players such as Huawei, Xiaomi, Oppo, and Vivo, and also Realme. The market seems to be red ocean for now. Moreover, it is even harder for the foreign brand from the Chinese perception. In addition, after the acquisition, Lenovo has repositioned themselves from lower end, low price, as Lenovo phone to high end, high price product market when acquired Motorola, which seems to be not very successful strategy.
Okay, thank you so much for this analysis. So perhaps the next question might be another interesting question that will huge local market for smartphone help Lenovo to repeat success of ThinkPad on PC business acquisition? So I think it would divide into short term and long term. In my opinion, this step of Lenovo may not completely repeat the success of ThinkPad to become world leading in smartphone market. Let's start with short term. Motorola has no share in big market of China. Motorola hope to capture some segment of this market from strong competitors such as Apple and Samsung in the premium smartphone segment, and from local markets like Xiaomi and Huawei in mid and mid-high segment of smartphone segment. Lenovo is financially strong and have good number of channel partners, but it still be difficult for Lenovo. Local side is in favor of Lenovo in view of shrinking PC market and competition on many fronts. It will be difficult for Lenovo to gain markets in China with loss-making brand Motorola. Lenovo market share in home market reduced to 2% from 12% earlier. In global mobile market, it is lagging behind Huawei and at par with another mobile phone Chinese maker Xiaomi. And share of Huawei during quarter 3 2015 was 5.7 in comparison to 3.7% of Lenovo and Motorola. Share of Huawei had increased from 3.8% during fourth quarter of 2014 to 5.7% during quarter 3 of 2015. On the other hand, share of Lenovo and Motorola had declined from 4.5% during the fourth quarter of 2014 to 3.7% during the third quarter of 2015. And status of the smartphone segment is the same. The data of our smartphone, this one is that it shown in the table in this one. It can be seen from the data that Lenovo shared during the third quarter of 2015 was 4.9% in comparison to 7.7% of Huawei and to 4.9% of Xiaomi. Number of units shipped by Lenovo are much less than Huawei during the second quarter of 2015. However, Lenovo shipped more number of units in comparison to Huawei during the first quarter of 2015. The trends are similar, but there is a difference between figure of percentage as well as the number in many cases. If one compares Lenovo share with leader Samsung, the difference is more than 4 times. It may not be possible for Lenovo to compete with Samsung, Apple, and Huawei. In all possibility, it may at least decline in the sale of Motorola and Lenovo smartphone be a fifth or lower place. But if you look into the long term, it might not be the top 5 or top 3 as earlier, but it can help Motorola phone still present in the market in the long run. So moving on to the next question, merging Lenovo and Motorola is a major synergy, and how do they operate their organization after acquisition?
Oh, sure. I think there might be some trouble between them. I heard that there was some trouble between Lenovo and the Motorola team since the acquisition. Although the most executive of the Lenovo are the foreigners, you know that, right? But there might be some cultural difference according to the operation overseas. In 2018, there were a big layoff in the Motorola parts. That and this is an order from the Lenovo side that they lay off Motorola team by half of them. I think one of the reason is to cutting costs due to the low performance in sales. But I think the other apart from that reason is the failure between the communication and the cultural distances.
With all of the analysis and all of the equipment that we had earlier, let me come back to the discussed topic. To what extent do you think acquiring Motorola mobile smartphone business has or has not helped Lenovo to achieve competitive advantage in the global smartphone market? In my opinion, the acquisition has helped Lenovo to achieve competitive advantage. According to PLC analysis, at that time, PC product life cycle was in the maturity stage. Adding smartphone market into pipeline is not just to stay competitive in smartphone market, but also in terms of brand name, Lenovo. Specifically to smartphone market, it helped Lenovo brand to be recognized thanks to Motorola acquisition, not only to local market but also in global level. But if they decided not to acquire and stay on their own way, only in Chinese market, but diversify into a new market segment, this one could help Lenovo to still stay in Chinese smartphone somehow. But that's what helped Lenovo to stay in global market. However, strategy that Lenovo should use is select either focus growth or differentiate or low cost strategy. Otherwise, Lenovo will stuck in the middle. Motorola's portfolio starting from the second half of 2020, thanks to clear focus on selected market, which it mid-range smartphone, competitive product portfolio, and expense control. So its positioning is moving toward right side of this graph. So how about you guys' opinion?
You can go first.
Oh, okay. For me, let me introduce you with the OLI framework to see the comparison between the Lenovo before acquisition and the Lenovo after acquisition and how it's different on the ownership advantage, location advantage, and the internalization advantage. First, on the ownership advantage before the acquisition, technology from there was a strong competitive on the technology from related industry on the PCs market, but they have a lack on the smartphone expertise. That's result in the O9, the smartphone division that focus in the middle to low cost focus. But after the acquisition Motorola, they have the Motorola patents and design and the coming of a lot of expertise, more technology input from Google side also, and brand value that can make more value on them. So let's move on the location advantage. Before the acquisition of Lenovo, they have a high competition on the lower labor cost due to the manufacturing basis in China, right? And there's a lot easier on operation because of they operate in their own country. And after the Lenovo acquired the Motorola, so the Motorola manufacturing base has to be in the US. And it's also obviously affect the higher in the labor cost. But there also be some still positive on this because of due to that it is a plus relationship because of the US could gain benefits in hiring work and labor workforce. So there will be a lower risk from the interruption from the institutional base will. Like Huawei is an interesting case that they was banned by the President Trump because of this. They are like stealing the market share in the US and there will be the deficit. So if the US people got benefit from the Lenovo, so there will be no interruption. I guess that. And then it's on the internalization advantage. One thing is before acquisition, the local communication is important, and the also affect the better operation. But then after acquiring Moto, there may be some hardness in organization, like I said before, there will be some cultural difference between them. But we have to look in the long term that how do they will solve this problem.
So that thank you for your point. We'll talk about you. Do you have any do you think is there a good thing for them to is good choice for them to acquire this?
For me, I have a perspective from the SWOT analysis. So let's look at it. The SWOT analysis was divided into two parts. The first one is before the acquisition and the after acquisition. As you can see in the picture that the strength point of Motorola are well-known brand in the US market and has a strong relation with carrier, as I mentioned earlier, Verizon and Google, including the good R&D team and a lot of patents, and also the affordable price with good quality. However, the weakness of the Motorola are high time consuming per one innovation. So this was led to declining in sales. The innovation is also not differentiate much from the competitors and not very strong promotional strategy. For the other side, the opportunities of the brand that might be useful for the firm to broaden the product range to gain more market share. Introduce the product to other markets outside the US, increase brand awareness through marketing and better market communication. And last is to improve the product innovation to compete in the global market. For the threat perspective, the competitors in the market have more innovative product and also dominant in the industry. The perspective of the customer to the brand and world economic fluctuations are also the thing that they need to look at. But for the analysis after the acquisition show that the R&D part will be improved by the cooperation between two firms. The expertise not only in the US market, but the Chinese and Indian market from LENOVO. Better supply chain management and marketing strategy by LENOVO, which success in PC business before. And strong financial support from LENOVO, also the thing. However, the weakness point will be the too late of entrance into the smartphone market, which its competitors are far ahead and need a lot of marketing to compete with others. For the opportunity, Motorola will have new market in other countries, get new marketing strategy from Lenovo, 5G product with lower price compared to others, and get access to more digital marketing engagement from Lenovo financial support. However, there are many threats that need to be concerned. For example, cultural differences between Chinese company and US company. Competitors have better way to introduce their product into the market, or in short, others have better promotional strategy. And world economic fluctuations still be the threat for Motorola. And the wrong product that used for the penetrating into the market is also one of the threats that Motorola will face. And one of the most concerned will be the uncertainty of US government policy. So in my opinion, Motorola brand will be better. However, there are many things that they need to work at to overcome the challenge, both inside and outside the firm. That's all.
Correct. So that's all about the discussion today. So before we end this session today, I would like to mention a little bit about the prediction, what the future of this brand will be. So I think this brand, based on the analysis that we had, predict these two guests is amazing business analyst. I think this brand is still present in smartphone market, even if it will not gain a majority of the market share, but they should continue with mid-trend smartphone in global level. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching it, and thank you for these two for joining me today, and see you next time with the MM Daily Report.